So you are getting ready to go filming. These are really, really important points. So I'm going to talk about 10 common mistakes a VFX artist can make when going filming. So I'm going to show you a couple of movies from last year's students. Actually, you will recognize them because you have seen the final projects. I've shown you them. So I'm going to show you the footage that they filmed, and I'm going to tell you what mistakes they made. So I'm hoping that you will avoid that. So mistake number 1 is when you ignore parallax. As I was explaining to you, so when you look at two objects from your eye through your scene, when you move your head, the objects that are closer to you move faster. So that's a very simple law of optics, but it's a very crucial thing for the trackers. Tracking software's applications, they all use parallax to track. That's the most important thing for tracking. So parallax to the moving observer, which like your camera is moving. So all the shots that you're going to add visual effects, the camera should move to them, in them. So nearby objects are larger. Well, that's very obvious. The closer the object to you, the larger they are. And they move faster in front of your eye. So when you are driving on a highway, the trees pass like zoom, zoom, zoom. But like the moon is just standing there all the time because it's far, far away. So the moving objects move faster. The closer objects move faster. This difference in the apparent position of an object viewed along two different lines of sight is called parallax. All tracking applications, we're going to use synth eyes for tracking, okay? So, but all tracking applications, if you do tracking inside Nuke, which has a very, very powerful tracking, if you do tracking in After Effects, which basically uses Nuke, the Foundry tracking technology, if you use PF track or if you use like Science Division, 3D Equalizer, there's a lot of tracking applications out there. So all of them use parallax to calculate the camera movement. So that's the most important thing to keep in mind. Even when you are in front of, like you have your character standing right in front of the green screen. It's flat, there's nothing there. So you can bring some elements into your scene around the edges. So like, you know that like when somebody is standing in front of green screen, you just like kind of crop around the person. And everything else is just garbage or garbage mat as we call it. They will be thrown away, okay? So don't leave that area empty. Introduce some elements. So you will use those objects for the parallax effect. So I'm going to show you some examples. This is like a student project. So you see that this is their shot. And you see that like the character is standing in front of a flat wall in the back. So the only thing that the camera, the tracking software can see is there's no multiple layers. There's no parallax. Because the person is going to be masked out. In tracking, we only track the solid static features. We don't track moving elements unless we're going to do object tracking. So there's no parallax here. But here, from the same project, you see like, here you see like multiple layers. The front layer is like this walls. Then you have like middle layer, which is the door, and then you have that far away layer, which is the back wall. For some reason, they have attached these ridiculous markers on the wall that I'm going to talk about it soon. So here, another group. This is where the creature was supposed to be on the floor, okay? So that's a very common student shot. So like they just point the camera to the floor. without recognizing that there could be like an edge of a chair here. There could be an object, edge of like an object over there. So we see like multiple layers and depth in it. Here is just a very flat plane on the floor, and the creature is going to be there, which there's no parallax. But from the same team, look at these shots. So these shots like, so you see like you have multiple layers. So the roof has different elements. You see the tables here, and then there's like the wall. So all of these intensify the perspective and introduce like multiple layers that move differently in front of the camera. So they introduce parallax. So here you see like, you've got this front layer here, and then there's this layer like middle layer, and then there's far away. The issue with this shot is that it gets blurry sometimes, which we will talk about it today. So here you see that in their student project, they filmed right in front of green screen. There's nothing except those markers. So how a tracking software is supposed to understand how the camera is moving here. So there's not much information here to track. Because the persons, the characters will be masked out because it's a highly moving object, and we don't want to track that. But like, look at this one. So you see that like in this shot, they have introduced, like, you see these, like there's a bit of floor. The markers are positioned very smartly because they don't interfere with the character. So like when you want to key out, the markers you don't need to go through the like kind of cleaning the markers that are interfering with the characters. So, and all of these objects around, they help the tracking application to do the calculations. So these green screen shots you can download from the camera, Hollywood Camera Works, which is like a nice website for filming contents. So you see, like, this is like a close-up shot. But what is the point of this like bar with these attached stickers on it? So and look at how smart are the markers on the green screen. They just close to the green screen. So this is this is a very trackable shot. Let me actually track this shot for you right now in front of your eyes. So show you how. So this is another one. So let's analyze this one. So look at this one. So we know that all of these will be taken away. So I just create a mask around here, and everything else will be thrown away. But because I've got these like kind of elements in front of camera, and then these, and then this is what I'm talking about. Introducing some elements, some extra elements into your scene. These extra elements is going to be used for tracking. Even when the camera reaches to this point, the VFX person was smart enough to introduce these two boxes, because here there's not much data to be used for tracking. But now with the introduction of these two, the tracking will be much easier. Or here in the last shot, you see that these like kind of stands with stickers on them are introduced. They're further in front of the green screen. Green screen is a good source of features because there's a lot of features on it that tracking application can grab and track. But there's no parallax because there's one big flat plane. So by introducing, like, just look at, let's say, look at the difference between this pink and this little marker here. So just see like how when the camera moves, how they get closer and then they intersect. So that's how the tracking application calculates the camera movement. So I'm gonna let me open. I'm gonna open both After Effects and Synth Eyes. Just now, this is gonna happen very quickly. So these shots, I have copied them in archive green screen samples for you to work with. Oh, geez, I closed After Effects. So I just loaded into After Effects. Was it that? Yeah, that's the one. Okay. So I loaded here just to show you that. Okay, so I'm going to make a 1080p 24 frames per second. So that's the format for your final movie. That's actually it's a shots that the pixel aspect ratio is not square, which is fine. So just wanted to point out here that like in your final shot, you will mask out here. Actually, instead of a shape layer, I'm gonna create a mask layer. Yep. So you see that everything else goes away, and you only use like your king on that area. So everything else just goes away right away, you see? And you can start playing around with that on top of the background that is going to be added. So then, but like what's the point of introducing all of that? It's this. So let me open that one again for you. So this is the tracking application that you're going to use later on. It's called Synth Eyes. So pixel aspect ratio is 1.5. This for your projects it's going to be 1. You know, don't confuse that with here. So I just want to quickly, you know, we will go through like how to analyze features, how to do tracking, how to do like, you know, solve your camera, add 3D. We're going to through because every shot has different challenges. But because this shot is filmed properly, following all the principles of visual effects, just I click auto. And I say that creating after all, yeah. I just say that go and do everything. I just wait for you, so you do all the jobs. Bang. That's it. The whole shot is tracked. Look at the camera movement. It's just like the camera movement is out now. So look how I test it with a 3D object. So let me add a box here where she's sitting. Let me add a smaller box, like in front of her, like that. That's too large. Okay, maybe that one. Okay, just look. The box is there right away. It's just part of the 3D element is part of the scene. In few seconds, the whole shot has been tracked. And this is like, you know, this is a very usable, a very well-planned shot. So all the things that I'm talking about is that you plan your shot very well. And the first thing to plan for it is parallax. to have multiple layers of perspective and multiple layers of elements in your scene introduced for the moving elements. Mistake number 2, not enough static trackable features. So you need trackable features. By features, I mean contrasty things in your scene. So like all the dots and pieces and things. And then, so for the tracking, we only use the static ones. So if somebody dances in your scene, we don't track the person because the movement of the person will confuse the tracking application. So there's a couple of important notes on that. Is best to have as much inside the scene natural features as you can. So you introduce tracking markers whenever needed. But like look at this scene. So I've got all this, like those boxes like on the wall, these monitors, these writings on the whiteboard. So these are like things that the tracking application can see and track them. And these are like features in the scene that are part of your scene. So sometimes you go, this is what I saw that students make this mistake most of the time. They go to the bushes and they film there. They say, okay, there's no winds, there's nothing, and all the trees are static. They're not. So don't underestimate the subtle movements on what you think are static, so like trees. So even like a very subtle movement on them confuses the tracking application. So it's okay that you go to film in the forest, but be mindful that these are not proper features. So like you might need to track them with different, yes?
Like in the green screen shots where they had those pipes with post-it notes on it, can we put those in like a forest, for example, to like force a static?
But how do you want to remove them away?
That's what I was going to ask.
So that's the other thing, that's the next point that comes. Reflections are not trackable features. So like if your scene is full of mirrors and like highlights and everything, so they, because like that highlight on the window over there, when I move my eye, that highlight moves with me as well, because that's the point of my view. So they make the tracking hard. We have to be mindful about them. So let's say the tree trunk is static, but not the branches. So then I think, okay, if I have to go with this scene, I'm mindful that I cannot use the like branches that are moving, but the trunk is very static and it's there. The ground, I can use them. So here you see, like, that's not a good shot to track because it's all plain. There's nothing to hold on. This is a much better shot to track because you got, like, you know, all these features here around, but not the branches that they move, but like there's static features around. Okay, this is the mistake that most students, visual effects students, are excited to make. Add markers everywhere. So we always add markers when needed, just when needed. So always inside the scene natural features are the best tracking features. If you are obliged, if you must add a marker, think ahead about your strategies later on for removing them. Every marker you'd add, an extra removal task is added. Add markers when a CG element, but like you're welcome to add markers when your creature is supposed to be there. They are very good for like line of sight or for as a placeholder for the creature. So this is what happened last year. So many visual effects students searched tracking markers VFX, and they found this. Whoever created this, I'm going to find you and I'm going to show you that you are wrong. I've never seen that like in large productions anywhere that they use such a mistaken or wrong tracking. And they add these markers everywhere. Just imagine that, like, this is a shot from last year in one of the projects. How you are supposed to remove them? Have you thought about that, for God's sake?
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
So, but like I said, this is a right strategy, as I was saying. The markers are added where, so they were planning to add a chimney here. So the markers are where the chimney is supposed to, not a chimney, sorry, a fireplace, I'm saying chimney, sorry. A fireplace is gonna added here. The markers are where the fireplace is supposed to be positioned. So, and especially they are really helpful because this is a very flat shot and there's no parallax in it. So when the fireplace digitally added, so it works there. So the smart and intelligent like use of them is helpful. Here another shot. So here you see, like, what are those? Are you really have to add markers everywhere? No, you can't. You don't. You know, you got in this shot from last year, the movie Sick. I'm sure you've seen it. They have parallax, multi-layers. They have lots of features. The only issue here is that it's so blurry. I will talk about to you today how to make your shots not so blurry. So you remove motion blur by increasing shutter speed or closing down the aperture. But once you have all these features, why introduce a problematic, extra work for yourself? So because you have to go through and removing that and all of that. Or here, this is another wrong thing. So like, look at this wall in front here. So we have all these like little dots and pieces here on the wall. And then there's this sign here, then there's this door and the edge of this door handle. They are all good stuff to track. Well, at the beginning, just here, I might have introduced some trackers here because just because there's not enough features to track, but the rest is extra. Here is a smart way of using trackers. So here the actor is supposed to look at the creature that was placed there. And so that marker is not only used for tracking, but also for as a placeholder where to look at. And but like from the same team, same location, but you see this is wrong positioning of the trackers. Why? The question is why you add all of these trackers. Sorry. So you have all these details and multi-layers and parallax, and you see I can see like multiple layers. So they all, this is like a very easy tracking, easy shot to be tracked. But here is a very good example of using trackers. So like, because the creature was supposed to be added where the stand is, so they wanted the actor to look at that tracking point as a line of sight, line of eye. So just imagine that if she was supposed to look at an imaginary creature, every time she was looking at a different place. But now she keeps looking at one place all the time. And then when the creature is added, it covers this spot. So there's no extra work. And then there's like all these features and static elements all around, and then multiple layers for tracking, which is great. But here, first thing first, this is a static shot. The camera doesn't move. You don't need to do tracking for a shot that the camera doesn't move. So just imagine like how much suffering they've been through to just remove these markers away, and the shot doesn't move at all. So the first reason for the tracking is missing. So then we only track the shots that the camera is moving. For the static shots, we just have to know the focal length, and that's it. And like again, the introduction of all of that is just is a big mistake. Mistake number 4: film with rolling shutter artifact. So many cameras that you use when you film, like your cell phone. Have you realized when you film with your cell phone and you run and just like, you know, the image wobbles, just kind of like it becomes jelly-like? That's the rolling shutter artifact. So it's good that you know what camera the project is getting filmed on. Research about the project camera rolling shutter artifact. This is what I used to do. For all the projects that I was visual effects supervisor, I was always asking them, okay, so what camera you're going to use? And then they say, okay, we're going to film on Arri Alexa, or we're going to film on Blackmagic Ursa. So I would do my research. I research about, one of the first things is that, like, what is the rolling shutter artifact in that camera? Because every camera has it. Some camera more, some camera less. If the rolling shutter artifact is strict, so let's say your cinematographer or yourself, you have to use, like, let's say, I don't know, Sony Alpha 7, what is that one? A7S, let's say. That is a great camera because you can film in literally nighttime, but it introduces a lot of rolling shutter artifacts. Then you say, okay, can you go smoother? Can you go slower? Can you use gimbal just to avoid that? So this is a shot from last year by students. It's a nice shot, but you see, like, it wobbles a lot. It's compressed so much, but so you see, like, it's just like the image is just like wobbly. They had a nightmare tracking it. So I'm going to tell you what is a rolling shutter artifact and how it is created. So in classic cinema, the shutter was basically a shutter. It was a rotating disc that had a part, like a section of it missing. So it was covering the film when it's not supposed to be exposed, and then revealing a part that the exposure happens. But the digital sensors these days, they scan line by line and record the image. So what would happen if they go from top to the down? So you see that it starts seeing the world, the universe. The sensor starts seeing the universe slowly. This slowly means like a fraction of a second. But like even that speed is not enough when you do like fast movements. So and then sees the whole image, then it goes dark, and then again. Okay, so on the way, if the camera moves, so just imagine that red line. You're gonna film that, but your camera is moving fast. So your camera, the moment that your camera scans the top line, the top part of it, sees it here, but wants to scan the second row because of the movement, it's somewhere else. So that causes rolling shutter artifact. So some productions, some cameras, digital cameras, they use mechanical shutter. They use the classic rotating disc in front of the sensor. They block the sensor, and then when it is not supposed to be exposed, and then like reveal the sensor to get exposed. It doesn't resolve the issue that much yet, but we have this global shutter now. So like the issue with this one, because you have to bring a rotating disc in front of the sensor, the cameras become large. But you know that these days all the cameras are getting smaller and smaller, and this was very expensive to produce. So these days the cameras use global shutter, which like totally blocks the sensor for the time that it is not supposed to be exposed, and then open the sensor when it is supposed to get exposed. It just resolves a bit of it. So here you see like all the slides that I have shown you is coming from this website, from the Red Camera website that talks about rolling shutter. So here you see that like when this is with a global shutter added, but here is without global shutter. So you see that rolling shutter could, like, you know, some part of the image is just missing because of that. So you have here 5D Mark III and also Blackmagic Pocket camera for filming available to you. I just want to show you the rolling shutter artifact on both of them. You see that this is 5D Mark IV, but 5D Mark III is somehow similar to that. So rolling shutter artifact, you see that when the camera moves back and forth, the image starts to like kind of skew to the left or right, depending on your movement. So, and it's pretty high in 5D Mark III and Mark IV. This is like for Blackmagic. It just shows up in a very, very fast movements. You see like skews. It's slightly better than 5D Mark III, but like still there. Next year, you can use Blackmagic Ursa Mini. You see like it has almost like very, very minimal rolling shutter, which is very good. The cinema cameras like Alexa that they use, one of the very important things that why this camera is $5,000 and they are like $50,000. One of the issues that they deal with is this rolling shutter artifact. Try to avoid that. Mistake number 5 is not seeing reflections. So again, be aware of the reflections. You can't avoid reflections; they're everywhere. So all the like lights reflect here and there, the highlights, the mirrors, the monitors, your clock, your eyeglasses. Be aware. Just be aware of them. If your scene is full of reflective elements, probably auto tracking, like what I did just now today, you saw that, won't work well, and you need to do mostly manual tracking. Sometimes you can color grade specifically for tracking. So sometimes when I am given a shot, I like color grade it in a very extreme way. So, and if everybody sees it, like they panic, think that this is like kind of a final color grade. I say no, this is just for me for tracking, because I want to introduce a lot of like contrast and like you know, a very well prepared scene to the tracking application. So when you have a lot of reflections and highlights, you can deal with them before sending your shot to the tracking application. So here you see like one of the shots from last year. Bobo, you remember that? Here you see like there's a lot of reflections. You see that how this edge of reflection constantly there, and it is not supposed, it confuses the tracker. So when you track this shot, you have to be aware to mask out all the reflections. Okay, so this is it seems that it's going to be a very easy scene to track, but it turned out to be a problematic one. Flicker. So your camera, so these lights for us looks constant, but they're flickering. With what rate? With your country's frequency rate. New Zealand is 50 hertz. It means that our light has like, in every second, there's like 50 pulses in our light. So if we go and like, so let's say here, you see that if you most of the time this happens when you film in front of fluorescent lights or similar lights, and with slow motion, the scene starts to flicker. You see that? So how to avoid that? So you see that this flickering happens when shutter speed is 1/250. So most of the time, flickering just would be solved if you start playing around with shutter speeds. So here you see like frame rate is 24 and there's no flickering. But sometimes you really need slow motion. So you either use natural light or take proper constant lights, LEDs. Don't use always like these fluorescent lights, especially fluorescent light. They ruin your shot. So like try to avoid them as much as you can. Use LEDs. Okay, mistake number 7, filming the images that are not so sharp. So how to achieve sharpness? So sometimes you see like, because you go for that cinematic look, you love that. But for the visual effects shots, you have to negotiate with the cinematographer and the director and ask them, how can we go make this shot a bit sharper? Because sharp footage is full of information. So if you close the aperture or film with higher shutter speed, well, be aware of flicker, of course, but like film with higher shutter speed or lower ISO. So when you lower down the ISO, you have less noise, but not lower that native ISO. Each camera has a native ISO, but not lower than that. So you kind of like, and most importantly, I should have added here, I forgot, is just like, get your shot in focus. If she is the actor in your shot, you have to make sure that she is in focus. So the shots that go out of focus and they're like flew or out of focus, let's say, they're not. They're really hard to deal with. So here is a snapshot from last week's workshop. So here you see that like by increasing the iris, which means the aperture. When I said close the aperture, it means that one, iris here. Higher number, more wider depth of field and sharper image. Higher shutter speed, sharper image. Usually we don't go above 180. But play around with that. Do your tests before going on filming. Mistake number 8, motion blur. Filmmakers love motion blur because that's the natural way. This is my finger, my hand. When I move it, you don't see it. Natural movie is like that. When your camera moves, you want to introduce a lot of motion blur. Just watch the very first shots of Saving Private Ryan. The motion blur is an inherited. It's a part of the movie. But visual effects artists hate it because motion blur blurs everything and removes all the data. Higher shutter speed removes most of motion blur. So ask if you can negotiate with the DOP or cinematographer to increase the shutter speed. You can introduce motion blur later on. If you follow that goes extra. If you follow what I said about sharpness, there's a high chance you remove motion blur as well. So the shot that requires like drastic motion blur, somebody jumps, okay, or they fighting, okay, they're fighting and the motion blur is critical. If you film it sharp without motion blur, you can add motion blur later on with post-processing. But if you film it with motion blur, it's almost impossible to remove it. So you can blur the image later on, but not unblur it. Here is an example from students last year. So you see that it's a very good, it could have been a very usable shot, because there's a lot of features, there's a lot of elements, it's a nice shot, it's a nice location, but like you see like when the camera moves fast high up, so everything gets like really blurry, especially towards the end. Just see how, so the tracking software would have a hard time to track that. Mistake number 9, not enough data. So each camera has different dynamic range or latitude. What is dynamic range? So a camera can see, so these are like four different cameras. These cameras are shown different levels of light. Each one of these rectangles, from here to here, the light is doubled. We call that one stop. In photography, when the light is doubled, we call it, we increase the lights one stop. Okay. So in this chart, you can see like which camera sees more stops. So some cameras are really good to see like very bright images, very bright part of the image to the very dark part of the image. Look at that. Ari Alexa can see like almost 13 or 14 stops. But like if you go and film with your cell phone, it can see like from here, like somewhere from here onward, it becomes absolute black. It cannot see enough data. Here are some other cameras. You see that like Blackmagic 4K that is available to you. It has like 11.6 stops, which is fantastic for a portable camera that is available for students. So, but like many of you, so we ask students to film on RAW. RAW format is a very special format. When you film in RAW format, your image looks murky and milky and like creamy. And you say, what the horrible image I'm filming on. But that's not the point. The point is this image contains a lot of information. And if you film in RAW, it doesn't mean that image is usable right away out of the camera. You have to process it. Because in order to record as much data as possible, your camera has condensed information. So the image became so milky and creamy. So like, but you have to color grade that later. So always film RAW for your visual effects shots because it provides a great range of information for you. Expose for shadows. So when you have like a camera like Blackmagic and you go and want to film, so like let's say this scene. So I have brightness over there and I have shadows here. So I expose to the shadows. If you see the shadows right and the highlights become blown away, become super white, it's okay. It's okay as long as you use RAW format. It's not okay if you film on, let's say, 5D Mark III in a compressed format. Many of you go and film on H.264 or most of the cameras that you use, or your cell phones. When you film with your cell phone and you transfer it here and there, it's MP4, isn't it? It's a compressed format. It's a 4:1:1 format. It means that 4 luminance is saved and like 3/4 of chrominance is thrown away. So it means that most of the color is just lost. So expose for shadows, highlights will be recovered. Try not to introduce noise. So don't increase the ISO, just increase it when needed. Lens is as important as the camera when it comes for sharpness and also the data. Try to use very sharp lenses. Okay, this is also very important, that last point. Many of you would love to film in darkness, like your story has this like dark, moody situations. Don't go and film it the way you expect to look like at the end. So at the end, I want this place to be absolutely dark with a ray of light coming from there. So sometimes you just make the scene absolutely dark with a ray of light, and you say, oh, that's cool, I like it. But that's not what a visual effects artist treats the shot. You film slightly brighter. If you go for a night shoot, film it slightly brighter. It's like, so you might see everything in the scene, and the director says, what the hell? This is not my shot. This is not what I want. But you explain then that in the color grading process, we make it darker. But I need this information from the dark side of the image. But I can turn your image into a very dark scene later on. So this is like, so this group, they filmed on 5D Mark III. You see that the window is absolutely blown away. There's, washed out. It's just super white. Is it recoverable? No. This is Blackmagic DaVinci Resolve. You're going to use this next semester. But this semester, you will use Adobe Premiere, and there you have Lumetri has similar features. So here you see that I opened that footage in DaVinci Resolve. You see, like, look at this spectrum and scopes. You see that, like, lots of data is cropped up there. But look at this one. This is, again, from a footage from that students filmed last year. It looks unusable, isn't it? But when I looked at the histogram and the scopes in DaVinci Resolve, I can see, like, all the data is there. So because they filmed it in RAW. So I started okay, so this data needs to be treated, actually, because nothing is cropped. So with a bit of adjustment, the image is alive, back alive. Lots of image is recoverable. Or here. Here is very similar to what you see here, the situation. A blown away window. So this blown away window, because they filmed it in RAW, so you see that, like, I can see that some part of the image is cropped, but still a lot of it is recoverable. You see that I can see the tree in it. So some part of the image has been recovered. So film in RAW if you can. So some example of exposure recovery in RAW formats. So this is exposure recovery from Arri Amira, a camera that is used in, like, movie productions. I told you to target for, to expose for the darker side of the image. Most of the bright side of the brightness is recoverable. Here you see that, like, here it's if you underexpose the darkness, you see, like, when it becomes recovered, you see that the noise starts to reintroduce. You see, after 3 stops, 4 stops, it's almost unusable because there's a lot of noise when you recover it. But if you film in, if you target to expose, the correct exposure would be on the dark side of the image, and the bright side gets overexposed, you see that 2 stops is recoverable, 3 stops is recoverable completely, 4 is recoverable, even 5 is almost recoverable. So in other words, if the window is blown away in RAW, you can recover it. Okay, I provided another video. So this is the Ursa Mini camera that we have at Lone Central and is available to you next year. So here you see that, like, if your image gets darker or brighter, it's very usable until, like, almost 4 stops. See, that absolutely bright image seems unusable, and it is unusable if you use a camera that compresses. If it would be your cell phone or 5D Mark III or these like DSLR cameras. But if you film in RAW format, you can recover it back. So, but like here, it's just like here, like after like a couple of stops, it's unusable. 4 stops, because it's the darkness. Oh, what happened? Okay, I should press F. No, there we are. Okay. Okay, mistake, last one, mistake number 10 is when, as I said, when you go and film very dark, because very dark is what you really want. So here you see, like, this is the shot from what students filmed last year. So they wanted this moody scene, which is beautiful, but this shot does not provide enough information. They should have filmed it like brighter. I made it brighter here in post, but that's not meant what to be. But like just to give you an idea, they should have targeted to film brighter, introduce some more light, and say, okay, we go brighter and we make it darker later on. Because when it is bright, I can track it, I can process it, I can work with it. And all this noise that they introduce to the shot. Okay. Last note, a trackable shot is just the beginning. So let's say you followed all the things that I said. It doesn't mean that you're ready to go. It means still there's a lot to think about. So just look at these shots from last year. This seems like a very nicely planned shot. But they were planning to have a monster standing behind them, behind this tree. But how come? How can all these branches be rotoscoped, and then the monster is positioned between this tree and those trees? If I would have positioned the actor in a place that there would be a sky behind the tree. So I use that sky as a like kind of a luminance screen or green screen to remove the sky and bring the monster behind. So that's the end of my quick lecture on it.